Hey, I am Levi Johnny Griffin, host of Word Today, and this is my wonderful co-host,
Portia Franklin.
And today we're going to talk about birthdays. Portia, you actually have a birthday coming up?
In 6 months. Mm-hmm.
Well, after today's vlog, we might not be able to celebrate it. So that's what today's going to be like.
Let's fight and pray, move out of my way. God is on my side, all strength lies inside. Come hear the
because Word Today, I'm your host, Johnny Griffin, and this is Portia Franklin. Yeah, Vanna White, Portia Franklin.
Should we celebrate Christmas or birthdays at all?
So that's what we're going to be talking about today. Should we celebrate Christmas or birthdays at all? So you want to just jump right in?
Mm-hmm.
Let's just do this. You want to read some scriptures against birthdays?
All right. Ecclesiastes. I feel like we should start this over.
A good name is better than fine perfume, and the day of death better than the day of birth. It is better to go to a house of mourning than to go to a house of feasting. Mm-hmm. For death is the destiny of everyone. The living should take this to heart. Frustration is better than laughter, because a sad face is good for the heart. The heart of the wise is in the house of mourning, but the heart of fools is in the house of pleasure. It is better to heed the rebuke of a wise person than to listen to the song of fools. Like the crackling of thorns under the pot, so is the laughter of fools. This too is meaningless. So a little background on Ecclesiastes. Ecclesiastes is written by a man that is looking for like the purest form of joy, happiness, and fulfillment in life. He tries money, he tries debauchery and women and power and politics and staying drunk all the time, having fun all the time. He tries all of these things and he comes to the conclusion that it's all meaningless. Now in this, he says that it is better to go to a house of mourning than it is to a house of feasting. But before that, he says a good name is better than fine perfume, and the day of death is better than the day of birth. And a lot of people that are against birthdays and celebrating birthdays, like we know that Jehovah's Witnesses don't celebrate birthdays and a lot of holidays, and a lot of kind of ideology or a lot of thought process against birthdays is, why celebrate someone's birth when we don't know how they're going to turn out? They could be baby Hitler, right? You going, hey, Google baby Hitler, take this muffin and these toys, right? And you're celebrating the life of Stalin or Hitler or, or Saddam Hussein or one of these like terrorists, right? Someone that is remarkably evil. I guess that's funny. Portia, like funny that we're celebrating Hussein's birthday.
I'm laughing at your
analogies.
You're mocking baby Hitler.
Get your little muffin, baby Hitler. Here's your, look at this little beanie you put on baby Hitler.
I'm gonna kill millions later.
So, so that's the idea. Don't celebrate someone's birth, celebrate their death, because then you know what type of person they are. And actually, being from Louisiana, we actually celebrate people's death. If you ever seen the second line coming down Bourbon Street or the big parties and celebrations we have at a funeral, we're just kind of actually living out that principle of celebrating someone's death, because we know if they've been a great husband or a great wife, a great mother, great father, great humanitarian, great person for the community, someone that loved other people. We actually know what we're celebrating, where in a baby, you could be a rocket scientist or the guy that comes up with the nuclear bomb, right? So that's what this scripture is saying. Hey, let's maybe not celebrate their birthday, but their death day instead. Universally, though, birthdays, regardless of culture, some cultures don't have Christmas, and this is kind of our Christmas segments. These segments these vlogs and podcasts here, kind of these shorts or all Christmassy themes, seeing how Christmas is next week. But regardless of, I can't speak today, regardless of the culture, one thing that seems to be universally celebrated is birthdays. Now, we mentioned Jehovah's Witnesses do not celebrate birthdays. And I'm sure there's many other religions that probably don't celebrate birthdays as well. You want to read some scriptures for birthdays?
Don't mind if I do. Romans 14:5 says, one person esteems one day as better than another, while another esteems all days alike. Each one should be fully convinced in his own mind. Genesis 40:20-22.
You jumping the gun. You jumping there. Your birthday's not for 6 months. Don't be. You trying to get right there, right?
Excuse me.
Excuse me.
I was waiting for you to say something.
Oh, okay. Romans 14:5. As Portia read that, some people choose days to celebrate, some don't. And Paul here in Romans is saying, hey, man, it's really, really up to you. So we saw in Ecclesiastes, they were like kind of against it. We see here in Romans that kind of for it. Ecclesiastes doesn't necessarily say birthdays are bad. It just kind of more makes a suggestion that you might want to wait till the person dies to see what kind of person they are. Here in Romans, it doesn't say that birthdays are good or bad, or it just says, hey, some people recognize days to celebrate and others don't. Each their own is basically what Paul is saying here in Romans.
And what also came to mind for
Ecclesiastes.
You know what? Ecclesiastes.
You could just say the church at Ecclesia. Or Ecclesia. Ecclesia means church, right? So be Ecclesia. Okay.
Celebrating the day of death better than the day of birth. It also came to mind that, with the day of death, you want to be going to heaven rather than hell. So celebrating the day of the death because you're about to go home, instead of being here on earth, the day of birth, you're still alive. You're still here on this earth. Ugh. But the day you die, you're going home to heaven to be with the Father. Who would not want to celebrate that? I would celebrate that 10 times over than my birthday here on this earth.
True. Very good way to look at it. Why not celebrate? They call it a homegoing or a homecoming celebration. So, no, good. So there are a couple times in the Bible where birthdays are actually mentioned.
All right. I can read them. Genesis 40:20-22 is about Pharaoh's birthday. And Matthew 14:6 is about King Herod's birthday.
So there's a couple birthdays being mentioned there. Now, both of those were celebrations that kind of had weird twists to them. Genesis 40, as Portia mentioned, is the Pharaoh's birthday. But at the Pharaoh's birthday party, he restored the cupbearer's position, but actually hanged the baker. So if you remember that story, Joseph, by his brothers, gets sold into slavery. He eventually winds up in Potiphar's house. Potiphar's old lady says that he tried to, rape her. So Joseph gets thrown in prison. Joseph, while in prison, becomes like the head, trustee in prison, starts interpreting these dreams. One was for a cupbearer and one for a baker. Tells the cupbearer he'll be restored. Tells the baker he'll be hanged. Joseph pleads that they'll let the Pharaoh know, hey man, I'm innocent, get me out of here. Both of them totally forget. The cupbearer gets restored to his old job. The baker gets hung. And it was not until much later until the Pharaoh starts having these kind of nightmares and dreams that they go, oh, there's a guy I met in prison that can interpret dreams. Thank goodness for those dream interpreting prisoners, those prison guys. Baker. And so that was one birthday, which, so I guess the baker maybe shouldn't have hung around for the celebrations.
That is not even funny. That is just wrong.
And Matthew 14:6 was Herod's birthday. And someone else that shouldn't have hung around was John the Baptist, seeing how he was beheaded at Herodias' request as her daughter danced. Yeah. So I guess, the festivities were so awesome, but then John just lost his head.
Okay. Moving on. Jesus' birth predicted. Isaiah, was there anything? No.
Hey,
somebody getting hanged and beheaded.
Let's not get ahead of ourselves.
Isaiah 9:6. For to us a child is born. Thank you, Father. To us a son is given, and the government shall be upon his shoulder, and his name shall be called Wonderful Counselor, Mighty God, Everlasting Father, Prince of Peace. Keep going.
Oh, no, keep going.
Luke 1:14. And you will have joy and gladness.
You're a bit headstrong.
And many will rejoice at his birth. Philippians 4:4. Rejoice in the Lord always. Again, I will say rejoice.
So, not to get too far ahead of ourselves, all of these scriptures are to acknowledge Ecclesiastes. So Ecclesiastes says better is the day a man dies than the day of his birth. So why celebrate his birth? Celebrate his death. And that is true for everyone with the exclusion of Jesus. And this goes back to the title of this vlog, podcast, depending on if you're listening to it or if you're watching it, which is, should we celebrate Christmas or any birthdays at all? And because of this, so here I'm scrolling through. Okay. And this says in Ecclesiastes, I'll read it back to you now that I found it. And a good name is better than fine perfume, and the day of death better than the day of birth. And to answer that question about knowing if the person is going to be good or not, Isaiah 9 says, for to us a child is born, a son is given, government shall rest on his shoulders, he will be called Wonderful Counselor, Mighty God, Everlasting Father, Prince of Peace. So we know that Jesus at his birth is going to be good. So that would kind of give us leeway to celebrate Jesus's birth. And the supporting scriptures, as Portia read, one says, rejoice in the Lord always. Another says, hey, and you will have joy and gladness, and many will rejoice at his birth. So it's almost saying, hey, this is a prophecy of us celebrating the life of Jesus Christ. So should we celebrate the birth of Jesus Christ? Absolutely. Now, should we celebrate it by giving gifts? That's up for debate. Or, by giving the Xbox, as we said in the other video, that's up for debate. But celebrating, any opportunity to celebrate Christ should be taken. Even Christ's death, he says, hey, break bread, communion, do this in remembrance of me. We have Easter for resurrection, right? We have the Epiphany, January 6th, as we talked about in the last video, about the Magi visiting Jesus. So any opportunity to rejoice and celebrate and worship God should be taken. But just remember, the focus of Christmas isn't about getting someone a new iPhone, but it is literally about remembering what Christ did at the cross. And to tie that into the prosperity gospel, we are prosperous not because we have 5 Bentleys or 5 Lexuses or a big house with 5 car garages. We are prosperous because of Jesus' a series of unfortunate events. He was spit on, beaten, and went to the cross. So he lived the least prosperous life so we could live the most prosperous life. So we know how Jesus' life turns out. So yes, we can celebrate Christmas and should definitely take the opportunity to worship God at every corner. Should we celebrate all birthdays? Well, I'll leave it like Paul said it. It's up to you. Some people esteem a day. Some people don't esteem a day. It's up to you.
Yeah. Like I personally, I'll tell anybody when my birthday comes around, if you know me, I plan ahead, like months ahead. And I only do that because that's just the planner in me. But also, I find birthdays important only because to me, I'm celebrating or giving thanks to God for another year on this earth, because I don't have to be here. He didn't have to give me another year. Some people don't make it to their next birthday. So I look at it as being grateful and thankful to God to be on this earth another year, to do the works that he has for me to do. And that just also helps me to understand there's more for me to do. There's more to come that I have to do here on this earth, because he wouldn't have let me live another year if it wasn't more to do for him. And so I always like to celebrate my birthday with family and friends, just having a big dinner, everybody eating and be merry. So again, with gifts, sometimes I don't even require people to bring me a gift. If you want to bring me a gift, that's fine. I just want you here. Your presence is more of a gift to me than you bringing me something materialistic. So that's my view on birthdays. I like birthdays.
So now you don't have to give up your birthday.
I don't.
You can keep
6
your
months.
birthday.
Woo, woo.
You can esteem your birthday.
I was about to say June 1st.
June 1st. I'm June 16th, so.
It just happens to be in the same month as mine.
She wanted to be born like me.
First.
Technically, I was born first.
Your point.
I'm about Johnny Griffin. This is Word Today with
Shay Franklin.
Make sure you like and
share, comment, love, subscribe.
Give us your views. We want to hear your views and your thoughts on birthdays and
questions, concerns, topics for future videos.
All of that.
Yep.
All right. We love you. Merry Christmas.
And a Happy New Year.
Peace. You about to do the peace like me?
No, I wasn't.